Welcome to All the Gear But No Idea, the South Australian fishing podcast hosted by Rohdey and Diz. The boys will share their tall tales of the one that got away, as well as some regular segments they know all you fishing tragics will enjoy.
G'day guys and welcome to episode 70 of All the Gear But No Idea, the South Australian Fishing Podcast. Rohdey, it's excellent to have you here today in the studio.
Yeah, Diz, it's good to be here. Obviously, we're meeting under sad circumstances this week.
We are. I think it's very obvious what at least one of our lemons is going to be. We might even double up on that lemon, but it is, like you say, a sad time, and we're going to catch up with somebody who has had to be part of breaking that very unfortunate news, which is Asher Dezsery from RecFish, the new executive officer who's really come on board at a challenging time, Rohdey.
He has, I think he said, 3 or 4 weeks he's been in the job, and that's been the pointy end of this snapper discussion, and obviously the outcome wasn't what we were hoping for, wasn't what anyone was hoping for, yes. But in all reality, the writing was probably on the wall that, was it a month ago or something that report came out?
I think so.
When it sort of said that, look, the stocks are still just as depleted as what they were. They haven't got any better. They haven't got any worse, more or less. So, look, it probably doesn't come as a massive surprise. Maybe the 3.5 years was more than what we were hoping. Yeah, certainly. And look, let's not get bogged into the detail too much because we're going to talk about it a bit later on. But yeah, certainly 3.5 years feels like a bit of a kick in the guts. It does, Diz. Should we leave it at that and keep moving? Let's, Rohdey. We've got oranges and lemons to get through. Of course, our usual segment at the start of every episode. I'll let you kick us off with your orange, Rohdey. It's a good one. Yeah, Diz. I'm going to run with the recent trip to KI as we crack open our frothy. Had to start with the bad news before we crack the beer, but we had a great week over on KI, Diz. You missed out. You'll probably touch on that. That might be your lemon if you move past the snapper. But we stayed at halfway between Stokes Bay and Snellings on the north coast. 3 or 4 days with just me, Lucy and Lil. Bit of a little family getaway, and then Pez and Amy came over. I did say to Lucy on the way home, probably didn't have as much fishing success, maybe not even as much time targeting the fish as we have in the past with a 9-month-old baby. Yeah, but 10 out of 10 holiday, 5 out of 10 fishing trip. Okay, right. Well, that's good. Anyway, maybe 4.5 out of 10. Very good. Anyway, well, I'll keep us going with the oranges just so we sort of start on a bit of a high note before we really sort of get ourselves down into what has most definitely been the lemons. Look, there's some public holidays coming up, obviously, this time of year, full of them. We've got Monday, Tuesday, and the following Monday off. A lot of people get time off this pointy end of the year, so to speak. But tuna photos, Rohdey, they're starting to become a bit more frequent. Yeah, Diz, we'll touch on this in the fishing report, but we did actually see a couple of tuna. We didn't get them on KI, but we will touch on that. But, geez, they're close. They must be close, and that's what I'm looking forward to, and that's going to be my orange. Is public holidays coming up. Hopefully a great chance for ourselves and a lot of our listeners to get out there and chase some tuna because we've all been waiting, that's for sure. Rohdey, let's move on to the sour note. Of course, the lemons. What's yours been? I'm going to move on to this bloody, not COVID. I was going to say COVID. I'm sick of talking about COVID, but I'm going to talk about all the other illnesses that come with childcare. Oh. Everyone warns you. I sort of took that with a grain of salt. I said, look, Lil's got a pretty good immune system about her. She's pretty healthy. She'll be right. Anyway, 4 or 5 weeks into childcare. I think Ned started about the same time. Yeah, bang. I don't know about you, but Lil's had bloody croup, conjunctivitis. We had a quick dash to the Kingscote Hospital at midnight one night. She's had adenovirus. She's had gastro. She's had coughs and colds. She has been sick for 5 weeks. It's horrible. It's wearing me down. She doesn't sleep. It's just, this. I don't know what happens in those childcare centres, but they are not a clean place. They're absolute cesspools of viruses and grossness. If anyone's having kids and they tell you that the illness is not good, it is worse than that. Nah, it's horrible. Seriously, you can't avoid it. It's all about building the immune system. So
I'm confident that this is going to be benefiting them in the long haul, but my goodness, it's horrible to live through.
And if I had a newborn again, I'd send them out to eat more dirt in their early years. Build it up before they get to childcare.
Yeah, good shout. All right, Rohdey, well, my lemon is going to be the fact that I had to miss KI. I was planning on heading over for a few days worth of hardcore fishing towards the end, but I missed that with about 9 or 10 staff members off with COVID in the 1 week, and that followed a possibly coincidental Christmas show that we may have held the week before, but there were some possible external factors that might have contributed to that, but lots of illness, not great, and then just when you thought you were getting away with it, bang, you get the news yesterday, snapper ban. 3.5 years.
It's blow after blow, Diz, and the quicker you introduce a no rat test policy at the pharmacy, the better off, I reckon.
It's certainly feeling that way at the moment. There's just been nothing but, and it's, oh, look, I don't know. I don't think too many people at work listen to this show, but I can't help but feel like people are drawing a pretty long bow catching COVID this time of year.
And if you think childcare's a cesspit of disease, that bloody pharmacy, you've had more COVID than anyone.
Oh, come off it, mate. It's not that bad. COVID's out. You catch COVID at the supermarket if somebody sneezes on you.
Yeah, you're right. All right, let's keep moving, Diz.
All right, merch, Rohdey. What do you need for summer? Of course you need a hat.
Yeah, look, I even could have had a beanie on a couple
hat.
of those cold mornings on KI last week. But yes, it's certainly coming to hat season. We've got grey ones and navy ones that'll pretty much go with any outfit.
Yeah, no, they're versatile. So obviously any sort of merch queries, send us through a message on our socials and we'll sort you out in that regard. But yeah, hats at this time of year, I would have thought.
And I went to Marion today and that was not a good place to be. So save yourself the trip.
Yeah, good
and jump into our socials and we'll sort you out rather than you going to Marion and fighting the plague of humans.
Love that, Rohdey. All right, Rohdey, let's get into the news because there's a bit to get through. Not an enormous amount of news this week.
Obviously, the one big news, but we'll leave that for now because we are getting Asher on to talk about that a bit later.
Yeah, I was going to say we've got Snapper Ban clearly as a news item this week, but we are going to leave that because, like you say, we're going to hear it from Asher a bit later and ask him some questions. But in the news, of course, Rohdey, Seacliff Man catching far too many squid. 69
southern calamari. Reminder, the personal bag limit is 15. So he had 69 weighing more than 25 kilos when the fisheries officer sees the catch and the vessel.
And they're tipped off, so somebody's noticed some suspicious behaviour. But, I mean, that's a disgrace.
And was he in a kayak, I think?
Don't know.
I might have made that up.
But, look, I hate having these in our news segment.
It happens all too often, doesn't it?
I hate having them in here. And look, it's not going to be long before somebody gets done with 5,000 crabs in their buddy back of their car.
Oh, yeah, that happens too, doesn't it? Abalone, crabs.
Yeah. It'll be like Thompson's Beach or something, like where everyone, they've been raking. They've got 500 and 50% of them are small. Like, grow up.
And we did cover this, that would have been maybe a couple of years ago when they pretty much doubled or tripled the fine. So they do hit you with a much bigger fine these days.
Yeah, I
know. Hit them with the book, hit them hard.
Yeah, I reckon so. Certainly if anybody's doing this in their boat, take their boat, seize it, gone.
Yeah, I reckon hit them with everything you got.
Yeah. All right, anyway, let's move on from that sour note, Rohdey. Jeez, we've got nothing but bad news stories.
I'm not sure it's getting much better from here either.
Can you give us a good news story? All Goolwa barrages open.
Diz, this is obvious. We've talked about the flood a lot.
Let the water out.
Yeah, Diz, we have talked about this a lot, but the 576 gates that make up the 5 barrages are all open. And this article I'm reading here says that, for context, the last time we had a big drought was the break of the Millennium Drought, when that sort of opened up and we got some significant flow in the 2010-2011 season. In that high flow event, there was 400 of the gates open.
Right.
We're now up to 576, and that's all they can open. So they're letting it rip, basically. And that's a quote from SA Water's Senior Manager of River Murray Operations, Gary Fife. So basically, they open all the gates, and that lets as much water through the mouth as possible. Obviously, that helps to ease the flooding upstream, which helps hopefully plenty of people's shacks and houses.
Yeah, I mean, I look, this is a huge news story. I mean,
And it's bigger than a fishing story too.
That's right. This is going to break records,
records, yeah.
comfortably, and a lot of damage, a lot of livelihoods. So it's certainly not something we should joke about. But it's amazing when you have these flood events. We don't seem to be very good at harvesting any of that water.
No.
Our solution is, like we're just pointing out here, open the gates and let it out. I'm not going to sit here and say that's a good thing or a bad thing. They're clearly doing that to try and relieve pressure on a number of towns that are going to be doing it tough for a number of months, because don't forget, this is not going away anytime soon.
No.
These towns, let alone the cleanup, these towns are going to be suffering in higher water situations for months to come.
And from a purely selfish point of view, it will be interesting what that does to the tuna fishery down at Victor Harbour with all this water flowing out. I know there is speculation and theories, and that's all it is at this stage, but there's plenty of people saying that the dirty water coming out might affect the bait, which could affect the tuna. So that'll be interesting as well.
It will be interesting. And I mean, so much is known about, I guess so little is known, I should say, about, fish pattern movements and where they are and all those sorts of things, because let's be honest, if there was a lot known about it, then fishing would be a hell of a lot easier than you make it look, Rohdey. But, it will be interesting, like you say, in these very unique set of circumstances, how much of a difference those things may or may not make in any given season.
Yeah, and this is one of those things that's moving pretty quickly. The floods are changing and all that, so it'll be interesting what happens in the next week or 2 weeks as the peak of the water hits, and it'll be interesting once, hopefully, that as we're going to talk about in a minute about the tuna, once they hit, whether it does have any impact on them.
Yeah, absolutely. Rohdey, let's move on. There's been a reef off KI.
Yeah, so through December, they've been using a boat ramp at the Bay of Shoals and a boat ramp at American River. So the Bay of Shoals, 5th to the 10th of December. And American River, that was used about the 12th to the 17th of December. I think they're rough estimates. And they've been using them to deploy limestone rock as the foundation for new native flat oyster reefs they've been building. That's a job that Kangaroo Island Landscape Board has been using. So they've taken one of the boat ramps out of action. Unlike the diabolical situation down at Victor where they're clogging up the channel fixing markers, they have got that one done and dusted before the busy Christmas New Year period.
Clever.
And always great that the reefs are going to provide habitat for all the species of fish over there that we love to go and enjoy.
Pengo wouldn't allow them to close it down at Christmas.
Michael Pengilly's a good man.
There is no chance he'd stand for that foolishness.
He would know better than that.
Absolutely. Rohdey, well, very good news story. Thanks for that. Moving right along, there's been a number of shark sightings.
Yeah, Diz, I never quite know what to make of these. You read them on the advertiser and in social media and all that, and there's a fair bit of everyone's got a camera phone these days, everyone's got a Facebook and a Twitter, so you take a picture and you share it to 100 people. But I think there were 4 shark sightings in 3 days on metro beaches. Make of that what you want. I think one was a sighting at Glenelg that had a quick evacuation. I think there was another one at Henley and maybe another one at Brighton.
All the metro beaches. And look, let's, so there was a news article on this just yesterday or might have even been today, but there's a new plane that's operating, I think 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. every day of summer for the next, basically, like I say, through summer, every day.
Yeah, and the more we look for them, the more we'll find them.
The plane's out there flying around. Of course it's going to see sharks. They're in the water, for goodness sakes. The sightings will go up if we start actively looking for them.
Yeah, and it's not changing your chances of getting bitten by one or any of that rubbish. They've always been there. They'll always be there.
Don't get me wrong. I think it's a good thing because if people are swimming at Brighton and there's a shark just at the back of the jetty and someone can spot them and get some people out of the water, fantastic. But, all of this...
And even if there are more sharks, that's actually a good thing for the ecosystem and a good thing for the health of the Gulfs and all that anyway, really.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, more shark sightings... more dramatised news stories to come.
And now we're talking about it. We're just talking it up too. So
We are. We're one of
Bit of
those
the pot calling the
dramatised
kettle
news
black.
story. There's been a whale washed up.
yeah, was that Corny Point?
Yes, Corny Point. The public's been urged not to go out there and look. I've been wound up on a reef out there. There'll be a lot of sharks circling around that.
Don't go and look at the whale itself, but if you did take your big boat about 500 metres offshore and put a couple of oily mackerel fillets or something out there, I reckon you might catch something.
I reckon you would too, for sure. Although, having said that, I'm not sure what they're going to go for. A free meal off the whale or a couple of oily mackerel fillets. Who knows? You'd still be a red hot chance, I reckon. Rohdey, good news segment there.
Yeah, it was a bit more negative than positive, but we'll take that. And we haven't even got to the most negative of it all.
No, we haven't, which is, of course, the snapper ban. And we're going to talk all about that with our guest, Asher. Let's get him on the line. Righto, Rohdey, it's been an absolutely hectic few days, probably a few weeks, I imagine, for our guest, Asher Dezsery, RecFish Executive Officer. Fantastic to have you on. Thanks for joining us.
No worries. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm sure we'll have you on a few times in the future, Asher. And thanks for all your work in the last few weeks about the RecFish job you've started and obviously the snapper stuff that's been going on. We're obviously going to spend a bit of time on that. But before we do, we want to ask you the same 5 questions we ask all our guests. And that starts off with telling us about your best fish.
Yep. So best fish, I sort of like, I've got a favourite of each species really, but you know, you get those fish that you sort of, everything just comes together and you sort of remember it forever. But yeah, I've caught some real big bronzies, sort of up around 11-foot mark, 25 kilo kingies, big 80 centimetre flathead. That was one of my absolute favourites.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah, that was sort of life changing. And I do a bit of diving as well. So my first 5 kilo cray was a real life changer, and I sort of remember that real clearly. And that was probably one of my all time favourites, even though it wasn't fishing, it was diving. It's sort of similar.
All right, we're going to touch on 2 of them quickly. Firstly, I've just been to KI last week and we got a couple of 1 kilo cray, so I'd hate to see a 5 kilo one.
Yeah, yep. They're pretty terrifying when you get them up close, and when they're latching onto you, it's actually pretty scary, but they're so calculated and clever.
Yeah, they don't get that big by being dumb, I assume.
No, that's right. So I reckon, I reckon those big ones are estimated to be upwards of sort of 12 to 15 years old.
Yeah, wow.
So,
and I catch little babies and think they're big when you see them underwater and everything looks bigger.
Yeah, yep.
How big did the 5 kilo one look underwater?
Oh, it looked like it was going to eat my head off.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, you stick your head in a cave and that thing's standing there looking at you. When they get that big, they sort of like throw their horns at you.
Yep.
So they're almost like spurring you on to attack them. So yeah, when they're that big, you know they're either coming home or they're going to get you.
Yeah. And what about the flathead? Was that a bait or a lure?
That was soft plastic.
Yeah,
so
nice.
one of my absolute favourites. And that one probably a big girl at that size, but yeah, chased it into my feet 3 or 4 times before it actually committed. But yeah, it was a pretty exciting time in waist deep water.
Oh, absolutely. And then good eating at the end of that, or did you release it?
No, that one was released. But yeah, I've eaten my fair share, but yeah, that one went back.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for those, Asher. Some very sort of got the jealousy going there a bit, Rohdey, didn't it, for best fish?
Yeah, the 5 kilo cray really sparked my interest.
Asher, tell us your favourite thing about fishing.
I just love that when you're doing it, you're sort of not focused on anything else. You're not really focused on what's going on at home or thinking of all those sort of trivial problems. You just focus on what you're doing at that exact point. And yeah, that's pretty special to me. And I think special to everyone else as well.
Yeah, no, that's a pretty common answer, something along those lines. So we love that, Asher. But let's keep moving. Tell us about your first fishing memory or what got you into it.
Yeah, I was probably 6 or 7, I reckon. And we were fishing the wharf, like the marina at Rohdey, down the southeast. It was just a real calm winter's night, and every single pilchard I threw out on snooted hooks would get smacked by a 60 or 70 centimetre mulloway. And it was like that for about 2 hours. It was just nuts.
Bang.
I'm not sure whether I'm more impressed with the fish you caught or the calm night at Rohdey.
Yeah, well, that's what's crazy is just like I've never experienced anything like it, and yeah, I was ruined from 6 years old pretty much.
Yeah, amazing. Asher, tell us your favourite sort of fishing and why.
Yeah, it's either flathead on soft plastics or surface cod. A bit of a weird answer, but they're both like pretty funny fish, like in their own right, because they've just got their own little personalities, especially when they get bigger. I sort of like, whenever I take new guys surface cod fishing, especially, I always describe it as it's like sort of being at school in the classroom and seeing someone tease the quiet guy. And like everyone knows he's eventually going to explode, but no one knows when it's going to happen, but they just know it's going to happen.
Yeah, that's right.
And you can see him, and your mates can see him, and you're just sitting there chucking lures over him, and then eventually they just go full rage and explode. It's just the most exciting thing ever, watching him sort of inhale a big surface lure or a soft plastic at your feet or something like that. It's just amazing.
Yes, no, very exciting stuff. That is, Asher, for sure. Now, lastly, before we get on to the rest of our questions, let's hear about either a funny fishing story or the one that got away.
Yep. So it was funny for me, but I used to do a bit of cray research work on lobster boats, and at night when we'd anchor up we'd be at sea for sort of 7 to 10 days, and we'd anchor up out off Kangaroo Island somewhere and catch gummy sharks at night, just because you're only crayfishing during the day. But obviously there's no bathrooms on the toilet or anything like that, so you'd have to use the lavatory bucket. And whatever goes in the bucket gets thrown over the side. So, I've done what I've done and then chucked over the side, and I've walked back on the deck, and the deckhand's there, and he's just thrown out his bait for his gummy shark, and he's washing his hands in the deck hose. And I've seen a little bit of bits of paper come through on the deck, and then next minute he's screaming and carrying on because the deck wash pump sucked up whatever I've thrown over, and it's just ended up straight on his hands and on the deck and everywhere else. So, like I said, pretty funny for me, but not for him much.
He would not have been loving life.
No, because he was actively washing his hands, it sort of really messed him up.
Did he just sort of resort to the old hand gel for the rest of the trip?
No, he didn't look me in the eye for about a week, I reckon.
Yeah, I don't blame him. Blame him.
No. All right, Asher, thank you for answering those 5 questions. Very good answers, and you clearly are not only involved in the sort of background side of fishing now, but you're a keen fisher from way back, so that's good to hear.
Yeah, no worries.
All right, we're going to start off with, obviously, the hot topic is the snapper ban, but let's firstly just quickly touch on your new role. How did it all come about? Tell us about your background. You've been the Executive Officer of RecFish for a couple of weeks now, and it's been a hot start, but sort of tell us how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, so I came from a background in conservation, land management and aquaculture. So I did a diploma in both of those and sort of got involved in the industries, did a bit of work doing data collection for SARDI for the rock lobster industry. And that was really great. It took me a heap of places. And especially with the land care projects was really exciting, doing sort of natural resource management all over the state. Sort of took a break for a while, and then sort of started talking to RecFish when they said they were looking for a executive officer, and obviously I'm still really passionate about the fishing industry, and I feel like at this time we're sort of at a pivotal turning point on whether we sort of almost just give up or we really put the pedal down and we focus on where we want to go as a state and as a fishery. They were obviously happy to give me a go. The last sort of 2 to 3 weeks has been absolute mayhem, but I've been really, really happy with being able to sort of put all my skills into play and really challenge myself to sort of achieving some better results for the recreational industry.
Fantastic, Asher, and it's great to have you in that role, and I think you're right. Clearly, a very pivotal point where we're sort of coming to, and I guess really for a lot of people out there could definitely be this. Where we sort of thought we might have been getting somewhere, and then bang, we get hit with this news just yesterday about the snapper ban. So instead of us fumbling our way through it, why don't you sort of talk to us and give us a bit of background about, how we've got ourselves in this predicament and, where we've sort of landed to date, I guess, from your perspective.
Yeah. obviously we were really disappointed with the results. We've had in the past some amazing years for the fishery where, I remember when I was younger being down at Ardross and Jetty on those supermoons and catching sort of 8 to 10 kilo snapper off the jetty. We just had some really amazing years where we had this huge influx of big fish and it just seemed amazing. And with that came a lot of external pressure from sort of commercial sector, not pointing fingers, but the commercial sector and the charter industries and the rec industries, and everybody sort of got involved with being excited about this abundance of snapper. Everyone just got involved. And then obviously that's impacted the fish negatively because they grow so slowly. That's caught up with them. And now SARDI have released the snapper report saying that, they're in trouble. And speaking with Mike Steer especially, and he always says he's not saying that there's no snapper left. He's saying they're at risk and on decline, and that's what he's sort of highlighting that. Yeah, of course we're still going to see fish out there and schooling up and spawning, but not in the numbers we used to. And it's a hugely contentious issue that everyone has an opinion and everyone has seen the amount of snapper out there still, it's hard to sort of make heads from tails of it sometimes. But at the end of the day, what the policymakers are and what the minister's sort of decision has to be based on is the science that we're currently using. That's pointing towards giving it a rest and allowing that fish to catch up.
Asher, do you think that, I think it was a month or so ago when that report came out and it more or less said that the stocks are still just as depleted as they were when this ban started. Do you think the writing was on the wall then, or were you still optimistic sort of in the last couple of weeks? Or can you tell us a bit about what's happened? What else did you guys as RecFish push for? Did you push for a 1 fish limit or anything like that? What were you guys pushing for in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, over the last, sort of 3 weeks, I'll have to sort of just rattle a lot off the top of my head. But there were literally so many different scenarios that we presented for the recreational sector to just get some sort of access. And we had, I reckon it was 3 meetings with the minister, and we were trying all we could to allow, like whether it was a reduced bag limit, shallow water only access, a winter only fishery, spatial closures. What else did we say? There was a huge amount of different scenarios we presented, and they all got met with the exact same answer, and it was, if the science isn't supporting it, it's not being open to anyone. So right from the get-go, as soon as that report was released, I think it was pretty clear, and everybody that went to those snapper sessions sort of walked away from it going, well, if it's not looking good, it's not looking good. From our perspective, the recreational sector had a huge amount of opinions and a lot of dialogue, which was great to hear. And a lot of that was discussing the science utilised to monitor those fish, and that's that daily egg production method. What that does is monitors the amount of eggs per sort of breeding cycle that could possibly be recruited in the future. For whatever reason, those snapper haven't had any particular increase in that daily egg production method in any sort of noticeable amount for now. What we advocated for on the back of all of this was not necessarily replacing any method, but adding to the data inputs. So it gives a more robust picture of what's going on and allows us to monitor and track the fish's recovery right the way through from egg all the way to recruitment, which is, your legal size. That was in the terms of sort of like surveying larvae and looking at juvenile fish and looking at a much bigger picture across varied sort of segments of the fishery, so that so it could possibly be monitored in a better way. And because of that, they obviously released $5 million towards that. And on PERS's website, they've got the different projects they'll be doing. And on the back of the fish stocking, they'll be using those additional methods to help get a better picture of the fishery. And it's a hard pill to swallow, obviously, with recreational fishers just wanting to get access because they've just given it a red hot crack and everybody sacrificed so much. But yeah, it's just such a tough one for everyone, and I really do sort of sympathise with everyone involved because it's just it's a big hit for the recreational industry and all sectors.
Yeah, it is, and I mean it's interesting because what was going through my mind around this is that clearly you're right. The decision does need to be made based on the evidence that's put forward to the decision makers, and that's not dissimilar to any industry, right? I mean, what intrigues me is that, I don't know the specifics of how other states who clearly manage their fishery in a completely different way and probably from sitting outside, you might say a better way, but they're using different methods to just the one that we seem to be hanging our hat on, right? Victorian fishery are doing a lot more research into their fishery than what we are currently. Is that fair to say, Asher?
So SARDI work on a lot of things like independently, and they're from my understanding, they're always trying to move towards exploring the best possible data. I think with a little bit more pressure, it was really clear that it was not sort of a request so much from the public. It was something really does need to happen. And out of that, the minister told us that there was an acoustic method being added, and that's much like the orange roughy fishery uses for monitoring. And that utilises sort of like a sounder to hit the school and a camera going down and make sure they're orange roughy. And that's how they monitor. And they get an approximate size of the fish, and they can sort of do a rough segment of how many fish are in the picture, and they can do a rough calculation of how many fish are actually in that school. So that there are different methods that are being used, and that's the CSIRO that do that. And that was brought up with SARDI and recommended by RecFish to the minister, and that's obviously been picked up and taken on board. So it's really good to see that out of the recommendations we put forwards, they actually did get picked up, and it wasn't so much going, can we get access? No, we can't. All right, let's just walk away from this and, just wait another 3 years. It was, if we can't get access, how can recreational fishers get involved in the recovery, and how can we see the recovery better and do something about it rather than just sitting on our hands waiting for it to get better?
Yes. Yeah, certainly, Asher. That's, I suppose you have to accept the outcome now. The decision's been made. It's disappointing, but I suppose that's probably what we want to know. Like, I know they have promised some funding and things like that. So how are the government sort of promising that they're going to fix this situation by 2026? Because, the worst thing that could happen is we get to 2026 and the numbers stay the same.
The short answer is right now, I don't personally know.
Yeah.
But the long answer is, from a common sense perspective, which let's use that right now, is from the minister's discussions, it was immediately like something needs to be done and we need to announce this now, before, not wait right until the date of February and then go, oh, no, we're going to sort of pull the rug from you. It was to give as much notice for people to get their ducks in a row. So I can't see why, because with PERS's new monitoring techniques, I think off the top of my head, I reckon on their website it says that they're going to be sort of have data available by December 23, I reckon it is. So from my perspective, there's no reason why that we can't sort of reassess after a year. Yes, the ban has been announced for 3.5 years, but there's no reason why we can't sort of reassess a little bit, year by year. And if the fish is making a meaningful bounce back, and sort of everyone can see that, then maybe there can be a reassessment. But at the current rate, it sounds brutal, and wow, 3.5 years. But things can change. I'm not going to hang my hat up and say necessarily that we won't be pushing if the fish has recovered well enough, and the science is saying so, why that can't be sort of reevaluated and looked at a little bit closer. And as I said, by just using that daily egg production method, they're assessing just the eggs produced, and it's not following and tracking that recovery. So utilising different evaluation techniques, you can track it better, and then you might go, oh, actually, there's a massive window here where we've had a huge recruitment of larvae, and the fishery is sort of like a lot better than what we thought in, 1-year-old fish or 2-year-old fish or something like that. You mentioned Victoria, which is an interesting fishery because in Port Phillip Bay, they get like some freshwater runoff and things like that sort of change the environment that those fingerlings are born into. And this is absolutely only my own opinion, but with what's going on with the Murray River and things like that, is just who knows how that's going to affect the fishery and change the ecology in our gulfs in the short term, and maybe that might help or something. I'm not sure, and either does anyone else. And again, that's why in PERS's statement they've put forwards that they'll be looking at environmental factors that benefit snapper. So again, they can understand what's going on in Victoria or West Australia, and possibly they might be able to sort of utilise or make the best out of certain scenarios that can help with the recovery. And for example, if Victoria's had a really good snapper bounce back or a really good recruitment event, and that coincides with a whole lot of rain, then maybe we can do the same thing here, and we can coincide fingerling release when there's a lot of fresh water in the Gulf or something like that. Yeah. That's completely my own opinion, but I cannot see that not being looked at really well.
Yeah. And I'm also reading here, Asher, that they're spending $2.4 million on assisting commercial, recreational and charter sectors, $5 million to go towards improving the science program, which I think we've already touched on a little bit, $200,000 on reef restoration, and $1.2 million on the snapper restocking program. Can you touch on some of that? I think the snapper they're going to release a little bit later in their lifespan. Is that right?
Yeah, so RecFish put forward, it was a really interesting conversation with them yesterday, to be honest, because we sat down and we were delivered sort of the news and, what can we do to make it accessible to Rex, look at the possible scenarios, and the answer was no. And then we just switched and we said, okay, what can we do to help the fish recover? And I don't believe that conversation had been had within the various sectors. And it was really refreshing to hear the honesty in that and go, do you know what? We haven't really been given a lot of options. So what have you got for us? And then we were able to then present a whole lot of options for possible recovery and helping these fish. And out of that was, we said it would be great if things can be sped along with the release of fingerlings, because you're sort of cutting out a huge amount of predation and things like that. That the science there and the survivability in that isn't there yet because it hasn't been done yet and surveyed properly. So it's hard to say it doesn't work before it's been done. So it's a bit of a sort of you've got to take the first step. So one of them was increased stocking and giving that a go. The second one was, the science, obviously, which was picked up. And the third one was RecFish put forwards a proposal that we called the Reefs for Recovery program. And that was a program on getting the community and fishers involved in building snapper habitat and putting down so that these sort of new fingerlings can be released on there and have somewhere to live, and we can increase ecology and sort of biodiversity in the Gulf, because as we all know, the Gulfs are quite flat. There's not a lot of structure there, which, it means less food, more likely for predation, and less aggregation points for the snapper. So, out of that, they were picked up, which was sort of a really good result. The fee relief, so that $2 million or something was for that's a 50% reduction in fees for the commercial sector, because they can't utilise the resource they're paying that licence for. The 200,000 was for that Reef for Recovery program. $5 million for the science, and sorry, there was one other you said.
Yeah, it was the that was the 1.2 for the breeding program.
Oh, and the stocking. Sorry, yeah. So that's that. Yeah, sorry. So going back to that, 900,000 fingerlings. That was 450,000 in each Gulf, and they'd be released at approximately 90 days.
Yep.
And that's considered sort of an advanced fingerling in aquaculture, but that's from stocking freshwater fish. We found that if you stock really large fish sometimes, and there's high predator load on that water body, you actually get a reduced survival, and that's clearly because they haven't learned how to survive, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
They're relying too heavily on being fed and being in a predator-free environment, and that's particularly apparent with trout. I've found that you might stock a dam with half a kilo or 1 kilo trout, and they all get eaten by shags because they're just hobbling along on the top. So yeah, they're aiming for that sweet spot of 90 days, and that will hopefully help them learn to function in a marine wild environment while giving them the longest possible time in sort of a controlled environment to help them grow quick and sort of have a really good, healthy start at life.
Fantastic, Asher. And I suppose, we might be jumping the gun a bit here, but the $200,000 that's been released for the reefs program, is there any sort of specifics on that? Because I suppose you don't want everybody just going out there and grabbing a rusty old washing machine and tipping it over the side. Yeah,
absolutely. So our proposal involved limestone as the base reef. So not unlike sort of Winderer Reef up at Ardrossan, but from our speaking with both commercial and recreational fishers, is without the height there on the reefs, anecdotally the snapper weren't congregating on it and they weren't utilising it. So by creating higher reef structures, you're creating better snapper habitat. So our proposal was a limestone substrate stacked at a minimum of 1.5 metres above the seabed. So the 200,000 would go towards the initial placement of heavy limestone as the start of the reef in sort of an organised structure, and that money would go towards contractors, and those boats are really expensive to hire because of the cranes and things like that. So the money would go towards that. Incidentals in terms of everyone getting involved, like you've got to pay for fuel and things like that. There was an element of utilising recreational dive clubs if they want to get involved. Sort of air cost money. So I think an average tank of airs costs about $15. So all of those things, they're very minor costs in the scheme of things, but they're all going to add up.
Yes.
And with everybody wanting to be involved, it's great that everyone's going, right, let's get our hands dirty. Let's get out there and help put some rock down. And they're putting their time in, and I feel like, that's enough. Like they're really getting committed. And I've seen these sorts of projects before, and everybody gets so excited about the traction and the momentum that it gains that everyone wants to be involved. And these projects just are so successful because everybody's getting their own two hands dirty about it. And it gives a stewardship and an ownership of the resource, that it's not just being left up to someone else to deal with. And, you hope for the best. You're actually taking control of your own resource, your own environment, and you're sort of making the best for the fish, not hoping for the best.
Yeah, look, it's great to see everyone getting involved and I suppose making the best of a bad situation. But last sort of thing, one of the last things we wanted to ask you about is how do you think the 3-year ban we've already had and then the next 3.5 years, how do you think that's going to impact on other species? Do you think obviously no one can go for snapper? Do you think there's too many people now targeting whiting, kingfish, squid, whatever else it is? And do you think that they're getting hit too hard and they're going to have a reduction in their catch limits?
Yeah, for sure. It's something that concerns me personally that I've identified. And we've also had some other fishermen coming saying, hey, we've sort of noticed a reduction in availability of other species. And one of those is yellowfin whiting, for example. So because of that, we have another project going in the background at the moment that I'm working on. And it's sort of moving towards making sure that those fish are managed and monitored properly before they get to the snapper. So rather than we're sitting in the exact same place in 4 years' time or 5 years' time saying, we should have done something about this sooner, we're actively monitoring and we're actively pursuing the opportunities now to identify that, maybe this fish isn't as abundant as it used to be, or maybe, things are, a bit out of control and people are taking a few too many from every sector.
And are those stocks looking okay at the moment, or too early to tell?
It's too early to tell, yeah. So, as I said, we'll be looking into that project over the next few weeks, and there's all different studies that have been going on in the last 2 or 3 years on some of those species, and it's really great to be able to sort of draw on them now in terms of their habits and how they congregate and where they're at in the Gulf. So it's sort of a sensitive issue at the moment because you don't want to go off half-cocked.
Yeah.
So you need to understand what exactly is going on, and you need to have the science behind you. But it all starts with sort of the people that are on the ground. And if the people on the ground are saying, I'm actually finding it a little bit harder to find yellowfin whiting, it's time to sort of prick up and listen and go, all right, well, what needs to be done? So just from an absolute desktop order, you can see that the average catch within the Gulf for yellowfin whiting, as per the FRDC report on yellowfin, is around about, it's below 20 tonne a year per Gulf. And I think in 1 week in 2021-22, it was upwards of 5 tonne in a week. So that's a quarter of the entire sort of assumed allocation in 1 week, and there's sort of 51 weeks to go. So that's a huge red flag that even the commercial sector are talking about. So that's definitely something to be looked into, and that's just one example. But we're going to be doing that constantly, and that's what RecFish are doing. Is we're being proactive about finding these issues before they are issues, but also responding to recreational fishers' concerns. And if I get a phone call and if I get an email and someone says, "Hey, I'm worried about this," or "Hey, I don't understand the long lining and how this works," if I can give an educated answer, I'll give you one by the end of the day generally. Yeah. And I think there's a little bit of sort of misinformation that's come out, especially with this snapper ban, where people are sort of underestimating not only what we're achieving, but also maybe thinking we're the ones sort of voting, yes, ban the snapper. That's not sort of what's happened. We've advocated as hard as we can for the recreational sector. We've been told absolutely not. No one's going to get an inch on this from any sector. And we've gone, all right, well, let's help the fish recover then. So we'll be constantly proactively working towards every project we can. So if yourselves or if any of your listeners have any sort of issues or concerns, then we just encourage so much to get involved with RecFish, just to become a member. You can become a free member or you can become a paid member. It doesn't actually matter. Or you can be no member. It doesn't bother me. Just contact me and I'll do my best to represent the recreational sector as best as I can.
Fantastic, Asher. Really appreciate it. And I completely agree. We're in this situation now. They've made the announcement. What our focus needs to really quickly shift towards is, how can we make sure that, like you say, whether it's the end of the 1 year and we do a reassessment, or whether it's the end of those 3 years, that we've got a fishery and a resource and we can all go and enjoy it for many years to come. So appreciate your efforts, absolutely, and everything that RecFish does. And it's really great to get that insight from you today, Asher. Appreciate all of that.
No worries at all. Thanks for having me. And absolutely any questions at all, give me an email at Executive Officer at recfishsa.org.au, or just call me on my phone, and my phone number is available on all of our social media outlets.
Beautiful, Asher. Well, thanks for coming on, and thanks for sort of hitting the ground running in your new role, and I'm sure we'll be in touch in the future. Yeah,
absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers. Bye.
Great to have Asher on the show, Rohdey.
Yeah, it would be great to get to know him under better circumstances.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's a thankless job that those... Look, we've had Asher on, we've had Andrew, we've had Barry, we've had a number of RecFish people.
We've had Lee, we've had Levi, we've had Alex Williams.
Yeah,
we've probably had most of them on.
And it's what Asher said is them committing their own time
Well, he's obviously now a paid position,
Well,
but
he
everyone
is.
else is.
But all of those people volunteering and committing their own time, and all these bloody keyboard warriors on the socials, like, grow up. What are they? Yeah, you might sit there and go, oh, you're doing nothing. Well, they're doing a heck of a lot more than you sitting behind your screen doing nothing
And
yourself.
I know from what our interactions sort of behind the scenes with those guys involved in RecFish, they have put a hell of a lot of time into it, and they were as annoyed and as passionate about getting snapper back on the agenda as anyone, really.
Well, absolutely. I mean, that's like what Asher says. They're fishermen and fisher people themselves.
And they did put in a great word for us, and they said all the right things, but at the end of the day, the numbers didn't weigh up in the favour of what we wanted. Whether those numbers are 100% accurate or not, who will ever know? We have been catching them on our whiting grounds, but does that mean that you can put numbers into the data to make that work? Who knows?
Yeah, exactly right. So anyway, look, great to have him on. Appreciate his time. Good to sort of talk about it. And I do agree that it's been good to see the investment at least go into making sure, hopefully, that what we're facing in 3 years' time, or less, ideally, is, we actually know what we're talking about now. Because at the minute, it feels like a guesstimate at best.
And we've just got to make sure, A, the numbers are really accurate. B, we're getting some sort of, as he talked about, some sort of indication along the way, and it's not a wait and see in 3 years' time.
Yeah.
And C, we're doing something to make it better, whether that's reefs and or stocking and or everything else. But we can't just sit on our hands and say, oh, this will get better in time. Well, it might not.
Absolutely. We don't want to be in 3 years' time and go, oh, well, we don't have very good science, so, sorry, but it's depleted. All
right, Diz, this is getting me negative. Snapper are great, but there's plenty of other fish, nannygai, kingfish, tuna, whiting. There's heaps of other fish for us to target. So let's get out of this negative mindset.
And let's talk about him in the report, mate, because that's where we're at.
Let's keep moving, Diz.
Absolutely. So, Metro, look, there was lots of squid, Metro, until that absolute caught 70 of them.
What about the squid? So I know they're getting plenty Metro. They are getting plenty over at York's.
Yeah.
But Warina is an absolute hotspot. So Lucy's parents, Richard and Jane, took some friends out. I think 2 weekends ago, they got the bag. Maybe not the bag. They got 15 or 20 very quickly. And I think the very next day, Pez went out his kayak and got 15 in about half an hour.
Yes, I saw that.
So there's two of them getting a big boatload of squid in half an hour within, I'm going to say, a couple of 100 metres of the breakwater at Warina.
Good chewing.
Sounds like it. Amy, Pez's partner, whipped up a squid salad.
Oh, yum.
That looked good. I know Jane and Richard had a few and then sent their friends off with a few, but it was those good days that they had, so it would have been nice, clear water. But always good to see the squid firing, Diz.
Yes, absolutely, Rohdey. It's excellent. Right, let's touch on a few other reports. So this time of year, you get some of those kingies around the jetties. Ardrosson's generally one where they get a bit of a sighting.
And I think I saw others. Port Noarlunga.
Port Noarlunga, yep, that's another one that's been sighted there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, certainly if you're walking the planks, so to speak, be silly not to throw in a few slugs and a few of those things that might get some of those kingies going.
And I know when me and Lucy went on a little trip to Point Turton probably about 12 months ago before Lou was born, I know I took the squid gear and caught a few squid off the jetty at Point Turton, but it always pays to have one bigger rod on you when you go on those trips, just in case.
Yes, absolutely.
But Diz, what about talking about big fish, the tuna? What have we heard?
Well, I mean, it was only just the other day I saw a photo of them apparently off Rapid Bay. We're seeing more and more reports at Stokes Bay. You've anecdotally seen them yourself.
So I'll tell you what I've seen at Stokes Bay is when we were putting the boat in on a nice, I think it was the Sunday, we were over on KI, which we'll talk more about that KI in a minute. But nice local couple were bringing their boat in. They caught an 8 kilo tuna that morning. They said they dropped one that they reckon would have been 12, 13, 14 kilo, fair bit bigger the day before. They did say a lot of trouble with the weed. They were getting snagged very frequently.
Right.
But they had a tuna in the boat. I saw it with my own eyes. They got one.
Wow, there you go.
And anyway, then we went out whiting fishing. No good. Lil cracked the shits. We had to go home. Halfway home, we weren't that far from home, but anyway, saw a little ripple on the water. What do? You follow it. What is it? Oh, there's a tuna jumping, only a little one, but it was a tuna, 100% with my own eyes. Did we catch one? No, I didn't have a tuna rod. We were going whiting fishing with our 9-month-old daughter.
What were you just saying? It pays to have a bigger rod?
Yeah, well, look, do as I say, not as I do.
Heed your advice, my friend.
But anyway, not for not trying. I got Lucy behind the wheel and I got a salmon lure on my whiting rod and had a crack, but no good.
Jeez, that would have been fun.
Oh, we tried.
Gosh, that would have been so much fun if you got a little jelly bean on.
I had the little
whiting
the Shimano Naski. Is that how you say it?
Well, I think so. Yeah.
2500.
Beautiful reel.
That would have pulled some string. One of them little tuna.
Bang. I know, it would have been amazing.
But so anyway, if they're at Stokes Bay and we're hearing they're at in Backstairs Passage, they're certainly well past Port Lincoln. They've been getting them there for a couple of weeks. If they're not in Victor Harbour this week, I'll be surprised.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's just exciting. It's just exciting times, isn't it?
Yeah, I've certainly started looking at the weather for next weekend.
Let's go down there, Let's out on a mission and bang, your luck might turn. Right, Kingies. We talked about this last time, a bit of a late fire at Port Augusta.
Yeah, we did talk just a minute ago too, Diz, about the Jetty Kings, but yeah, the Port Augusta ones are still going all right. Yeah, they're still firing, which is good, and that's certainly later in the year, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Good whiting reports as well, all your usual stuff,
You want to know where they're not getting whiting?
KI.
Oh, we had a horrible time on the whiting.
Yeah. Not even at Island Beach?
We didn't. Well, the day we took the boat to Island Beach, the weather picked up and we didn't even put it in. We turned it into a day trip and did a bit of touring around.
Yeah, right.
It takes some, I know you've got a young one. It takes pretty good weather to get the 9-month-old out in the boat.
Yeah. You don't want to be going out there when there's white caps.
So that, and even Island Beach, pretty protected, but it quickly turned into lunch and a coffee.
We should get, like a second-hand car seat or something and rig something up for the boat seat.
Get a bit more secure.
Yeah, lock them in there.
But anyway, Diz.
The Allthorpes before long.
The whiting was tough going on KI. Did do well on the crayfish, relatively speaking. Got a few diving, Diz.
Yeah? Happy with it?
You want to know what wasn't good? The pots.
Oh, no good.
We got 3 or 4 diving, but had 2 pots over there, had them in sort of 3 of the nights once Pez and Amy rocked up to help us pull them in.
Yeah.
Did not pull in a thing. Actually, we put in 1 leather jacket, I lie.
Jeez.
That's
That's
a
ordinary.
flop.
What do you reckon you're doing wrong? Poor location?
Well, there were plenty of other people potting. There was probably 2 or 3 other boats potting in the same area. So, and we got them on some big reefs. Actually, we got one snagged in the reef and had to send Pez down with the scuba gear to unsnag it.
Oh. How do you like that?
Yeah, he was all right. Loved it. But anyway, we did get, I think we got 3, reasonable size, sort of kilo-ish crayfish.
Yeah.
Comfortably sized. They weren't big, but they were all right.
Good.
I want to tell you about what else I saw, Diz.
Yeah, come on.
Me and Pez descending down in the deep into a little cave, probably, to be 5 or 6 metres across, 5 or 6 metres wide, undercut sort of every direction. You're going down. What do you see? You see a Port Jackson shark.
Oh.
What's next to that? Another one. The whole way around us, there was Port Jackson sharks lining the entirety of the cave. There would have been 30 of them.
What if they just turned on you?
Well, that's what I thought, because there was a crayfish sitting behind a couple of them, and we sort of poked them with the noose, saying, can you boys shovel out a bit?
Well,
we want to get this crayfish. And they just looked at us. They were like, you're not bothering us.
I wonder what, they were just dormant?
Oh, they were very placid things. They didn't move.
Really?
So I'm right up to them and even poked them, and they wouldn't move.
Yeah, you wonder. They just sit there. See, I would have thought they need to keep themselves moving, get the water going through their gills.
No, they were just sitting there. And anyway, I did say to Pez, I wish I had the GoPro, but you go diving, you take your noose, you take your torch, you take your catch bag, you take your bloody crayfish measurer, you lug your BCD everywhere.
Yeah,
the GoPro's just one more thing to worry about.
Trailer.
Oh, there's so much stuff, and I just kept taking the GoPro out and never using it, but I wish I had it that day.
Disappointing, guys.
And the other thing we did do well on was we caught a nice shark at the end, cooked up some flake burgers.
Whiskery?
Well, I called it a gummy shark, but I think I was disproven.
Yeah, look, I think you might have made a mistake there.
Have you ever heard of a whiskery shark?
Not until Not until basically everyone said it was a whiskery shark.
Yeah, I didn't know.
I can't help but feel like they're pretty closely related.
They certainly look, well, obviously there's some faint sort of lines on the whiskery, and they did have a bit of whiskers about them, but the shape's very similar to a gummy shark, isn't it?
Yeah. Seemed like there was some, like once, you have a good look at it, there's some distinct splodges across the fish.
There was. They weren't like, it's not like a bloody zebra.
No.
Like they're not full black and white lines. They're sort of, they are splodges.
Yeah. Anyway,
Good
all's
eating.
well that ends well.
Only negative was we lost a lot of lead.
Yeah, okay.
Kept getting snagged.
Good thing we know a real good lead supplier.
Who's that, Diz?
Savage Tackle.
He's coming up in a minute.
Ooh.
Anyway, Diz, that's about it for the report, isn't it?
That wraps it up, Rohdey. We got a comp coming.
Yes, Diz. You tease us.
Watch this space. We have got a serious prize pack. In fact, we're toiling with the idea of having 2 prize packs. And it's going to run for... We're going to give it a good run. We're going to go for about a month. And we're going to have nominations, photo mandatory, I think.
Yeah, I reckon we need a
Doesn't
photo.
have to be... We're obviously encouraging recent visits or during the month because obviously we want to encourage people
we
to
want
get
to see
out
your
there.
summer photos.
But if it happens to be from, a week or 2 before we announce, sure, we'll allow it.
And we're going to have, we will confirm this, but I think we're going to have 2 prizes, like a bit of a small fish and a big fish category.
Yep.
And we did run a Christmas competition last year with some pretty good prizes.
Yeah. No, we've had a few good comps.
And we're not going to ruin the suspense just yet, but if you thought last year's haul was good, we've got something coming.
You're in for a treat.
There is a serious prize this year, and you are going to want to get us a picture.
Yeah.
We'll tease you, and we'll give it away in a little bit, but there is a big, big, big prize coming.
Yes, it's huge. And
You will want to get it.
You will.
I've had to warn Dizzy 3 times and he can't enter.
I know. Spewing. All right, Rohdey, what else we got before we wrap today's episode up?
Dizzy, we're going to finish with our tackle item of the week, Diz, and we're going to go with the Savage Tackle, the Gemini Sinker range. Diz?
Very good range of sinkers.
I've got the details from Simon, but I want you to just describe them for us. How do they work?
Well, look, they're a sort of surf fishing sinker.
Yeah, it's a modern take on the grapple sinker, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, look, we've all been surf fishing before where you get those traditional lead sinkers that have 4 prongs in it, and you stand there and you don't shape them before you go, otherwise you get it all tangled up in your car and blah blah blah. But you bend them down on the beach and you bend them into a nice sort of grapple sort of sinker looking shape, and you fling them out there. Well, these ones are a bit unique in the sense that they will have those grapples which you basically clip into place, and they stay in place until a certain amount of pressure has been applied onto those prongs, and at which point they'll release, which makes it far easier for retrieving, far easier for bringing fish in, and a lot less tangly.
So there's nothing worse than being down Salt Creek, getting your grapple sinker full of weed, and it takes you 10 bloody minutes to haul in nothing but weed.
Oh, yeah.
So what happens there is the grapple sinker sort of give way. It breaks away, not breaks away, but it flips out.
Yeah.
And then it pulls in with no tension.
Yeah.
So it's not going to necessarily catch you more fish. Well, I suppose it is, but it's certainly going to mean you spend less time snagged.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I mean, look, how many times do you see on a lot of those surf fishing pages, any weed down the Coorong, guys?
Yeah.
That makes that factor a little bit more manageable.
Yeah, and Simon sent me through some details. They come in different colours. So black is 3 ounce, green is 4 ounce, blue is 5 ounce, red is 6 ounce, yellow is 7 ounce, and then they go back to black for the 8 ounce, and that's the standard Gemini colours. And he sort of talked to me a little bit about how it is really important that you tension them properly, and you do need some pliers and to sort of tweak the wire where it sits in the plastic, and that gives it a firm grip to the bottom and means that you do get a good connection. And he sent us a little photo. So what we might do, Diz, is we'll share this episode, and then the next few days we might share a little picture on Instagram with the different colours, what these Gemini sinkers look like, and this little picture that Simon from Savage Tackle sent me through with some tips about how you properly tension them in order to get the best performance.
Beautiful, and it's a good time of year because people like getting down there, getting down to the beach, flinging a few lures.
Well, the Kingston Surf Comp's coming up, Tiz. I think that might be Australia Day or sometime in January, I think, isn't it?
Certainly around that time.
And they always have a tinny as a competition prize.
Yeah, they've got.
So if you're going to get into that, get onto the Savage Tackle Facebook site or the eBay store or whatever, or getting tackle in contact with Simon direct and get your Gemini sinkers.
Yeah, get in there. All right, Rohdey, that's been excellent.
It's been a big episode, Diz, and it's been a big week in fishing.
Yes, it has, Rohdey. Great fun. Always good to catch up with you.
Yeah, I'd say good to catch up with you. I'm not sure it was great fun talking about 3.5 years no snapper, but anyway,
good, mate.
They're overrated eating fish anyway.
Oh, whoa, geez, bang. Nah, panties are nice. Whack a few fillets off.
Yeah, they're not bad, but Nana Guy's better.
Yeah, I agree. Get out there and smash them nannies.
We're going down to Wedge or Althorpes or something.
Oh, yeah. Soon. Can't wait, Rohdey.
Put that in the calendar. We're just going to get the weather lining up with a couple of days off work.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Good to see you, Rohdey.
See you, mate.
See ya.
Rohdey and Diz hope you enjoyed today's episode of All the Gear But No Idea. Keep up to date by liking and sharing us on Facebook and Instagram. And you can subscribe on all the major podcast platforms. Until next time, good luck fishing.